Sex workers of Reddit, have any of you ever have a close friend or anyone you normally interact with daily be a surprise customer? What was the experience like, and how did it affect your interactions with them? My much younger brother was getting married at a bachelor party at a strip club with a dozen or so high school friends. After about an hour there, a rather ordinary looking stripper comes on stage, takes off her top, and our tables of guys goes wild, standing and applauding and hollering. I have no idea what is going on. The stripper looks through the stage lights. Her eyes get really big. She grabs her top and runs off stage to the back. Bouncers come running over to our table, thinking we are starting trouble. Nope. It turns out all of the guys in his high school class had a history class with her a few years back. She later came out and talked with us. Said she never thought she'd see someone, let alone 12. She knew it was in the next town over. In the mid-90s, my friends took me to a strip club for my bachelor party. A few cocktails and a few stage shows in, and out walks an ex-girlfriend of mine. She was stunningly beautiful, but bad crap crazy. My friends desperately tried to get her to give me a lap dance, offering her 5x the normal rate, but she refused. She said it would be too much of an emotional strain for her considering how intense our relationship was and ended. She ended up sitting with us between her floor shows and lap dances, just chatting. She had gotten actually married, and this was a way for her and her husband to save for a house. About halfway through the evening, one of the other dancers grabbed me and pulled me up on stage, whispered into my ear, "Are you wearing underwear?" Which I affirmed. She pulled my pants down, sat me on a chair mid-stage, and another girl loosely tied my hands behind my back. Each girl took turns giving me a lap dance up on the stage. Turns out my ex paid them all for a lap dance and arranged the entire thing. Funny end to the story. After that event, I was at work on the sales floor of a local big box retail chain working, and in walks my ex. We chatted and half a good laugh. My lunch came, and I went out into the mall towards the food court, and my ex comes up besides me with a bit of a panicked look in her eye. She slides her arm under mine and leans in and kisses me on the cheek, saying, "Let's go get that hot dog now." Befuddled, I walk with her towards the food court, and she proceeds to tell me one of her regulars was in the mall and he was stalking her. She told him she was married and he didn't believe her, so I got to play the part of her husband. I walked her out to her car after the hot dog and a leisurely chat to make sure she was safe, and never heard from her again. I had a fan who every other week would send me a small tip on porn like clockwork, and would be one of the first commenters on any new video. When I started releasing group content, like with more than one guy, he finally messaged me, asked politely if we ever needed an extra performer, and came clean. Turns out he was a co-worker I have known since I started at my job, and he has known since I got started, as he saw an early video. Luckily he was nothing but respectful at work and never threatened to out me, just kept up his bi-weekly donation, which I later determined was on our payday Fridays, and thanked me for my hard work, both at work and on the net. Happy ending. He ended up getting a blowjob from me eventually at a work party, and possibly might be in my next fan video. Edit. Everyone asking for source. There are 2 subs I moderate. That I'm the sole person who posts the content there. I'll trust you to do Reddit research yourself. Don't wanna directly link Pornhub account, haha. Edit again. But it would seem I can directly link subs. There was a girl I went to high school with who was basically a walking stereotype. She fit so well into the archetypal ditzy blonde mold that you might swear it was an act if you didn't know better. She was also fucking mean. This girl was a power bitch and wasn't really nice to anybody as far as I'm able to remember. People orbited her because she was hot and had everything. She never really bothered me because I did my best to be invisible, but the handful of interactions I ever had with her left me feeling unpleasant. Turns out she wound up being a pretty lucrative stripper later in life. I bought a lap dance from her, and while being nice is part of the job, it really did feel like in those brief few minutes that she did have a genuine personality shift. She was way more laid back. You could even hear it in her voice. She even commented about how she wasn't a bitch like I used to be, and I have nicer tits. It was a genuinely fun interaction. She seemed happier in comparison to the person I remembered. Last semester I ran a massage service, and I had this one client I particularly liked because he was so friendly, positive, and just smart as fuck. I never asked my clients for their last names or too much about what they did for work, and the only thing I really knew about this guy was that he was in a STEM field. Well, fast forward to one existential crisis and a college major change later, and this semester I have to take chemistry. Lo and behold, that really smart client is now my professor. Neither of us is currently acknowledging it, but I can tell that we still feel that bit of connection we did when he would come see me for massages. Is this like massages with happy endings? Sorry if this is obvious. Cousin 1, F, is a stripper. Cousin 2, M, lives in another state and hasn't seen myself or Cousin 1 since we were kids. Cousin 2 comes to visit. Cousin 1 invites Cousin 2 to her place of work one night. He knows it's a strip club, but expects Cousin 1 to just be bartending or waitressing or something. Anyway, Cousin 2 rocks up to the club and Cousin 1 has her tits out. Cousin 2 said he turned around and walked right out of there. WTF Cousin 1, why? Guy here, I was close with my cousin. She got blindingly drunk one Christmas party at her house. I was dancing with and about to seal the deal with her best friend. I hear someone yell about someone stripping and turn around to see my cousin fully naked. We locked eyes. She looked like she immediately sobered up and took off stumbling to her room crying. We talked about it later and came to the conclusion some at that party, not me, kept mixing her drinks strong. She would always carry a nice buzz at her parties, but being the hostess, she would keep it level-headed. That night I saw, quite literally, a side of my cousin I never want to see again. I don't think she had ever been that drunk, or has ever since. Edit, changes seal the seal, to seal the deal. When I was a cam girl I would have many guys message me saying they were my cousin or something. They were not, just trying to play out a fetish and I wasn't into it. So then one day a guy, in the main chat, said that he knew me, and his name was Aj, fake name. I was like, yeah right, I've only ever known one Aj, if it's true what's my name? And sure enough he put my real first name right there in the chat. We were in youth group in church together almost a decade before that. He became a regular. That happened with me and my estranged older half brother once, when I was camming. I messaged him on Facebook to confirm, and we had a good laugh about it. Hahaha. Much smarter to private message than challenge them to put your private info in the main chat. But still, I think if any of my brothers had found me, I'd never be able to look them in the eye again. Glad y'all could laugh about it. Haha. I was not a sex worker at all, but I was a fine art model for a college for a while. There were so many people that I went to high school with that entered those classes over the 2 years I worked there. Usually they wouldn't say anything, and I wouldn't say anything, and I would just get naked and pose for 3 hours lol. Sometimes we would chat after, but sometimes we would ignore each other and pretend it didn't happen. In college one of my girlfriend's suitemates used to model nude for the art classes. Fast forward about 8 years, I went to a bachelor party for a friend and we all went to a strip club. One stripper came out wearing the naughty schoolgirl outfit and I recognized her as my girlfriend's suitemate. As I was turning to tell my friend, the groom, that I knew her, he turned to me and said he knew her. Turns out that, when he managed a restaurant, she was one of his servers. His brother thought this was hilarious and paid her to do a lap dance for my friend. She had a great figure, but my friend never took his eyes off hers to where she would see him looking at her body. Even when she turned her back to him, he looked at the back of her head because he felt so uncomfortable. I'm a stripper. My friend's dad came in. I hadn't seen him or my friend since high school. I accidentally asked him for a lap dance before I could tell who it was. He said no, and I realized who it was as I walked away. He came in a few more times and avoided eye contact with me. When I was on stage he would look away. Another story, my first day as a stripper I saw 2 guys from my high school. We chatted, then they both paid for lap dances. This exact thing happened at my bachelor party. It was funny. My friend's dad had coached the stripper while on his daughter's soccer team. They had a pleasant chat and she went on to other patrons. Not a sex worker, but found out a girl from high school that I had a crush on was a stripper. It was my buddy's bachelor party. We load up in a van and head about an hour away to a better strip club. We get in and settle at a table. About 30 minutes in I get a tap on the shoulder and this sexy ass chick hops in my lap. She calls me by the nickname I had in high school and hugs me. She was always tomboyish in high school, never wore makeup, always competed well in gym, kinda nerdy, quiet, and reserved, but always very pretty, if you thought about it. I didn't recognize her for a full minute. It was a fun reunion. It was a full nude spot, and she gave no fucks during her stage performance. Really seeing everything I really should have tried to pursue it in HS. But I was a dumbass back then. TL. Doctor, she was a stripper and gave one hell of a show. Not a sex worker, but know a couple current/former who have worked in brothels, and they could see clients when they entered and choose not to come meet them if they recognized them, or if they just didn't feel like working at that moment. So it didn't usually happen. But on the other hand, a friend of mine slept with another friend of mine in exactly this way. She didn't mind him knowing, and he didn't mind paying. I had a classmate who was a stripper, and she was very open about loving it when people she knew came to see her at work and let her dance for them. She thought it was intimate in a fun, friendly way. I was talking to a stripper. She said she had grown up in a suburb about an hour away and used to strip there. She said that ultimately there were too many guys from her high school who came in. Kinda, sorta along the same lines, I guess. Once a friend wanted me to go to a strip club with him located outside a small town in Alabama. A young, really young looking girl got on the stage, and he told me, "Look at her. Isn't she the prettiest thing you've ever seen?" I said, "Yeah, but she seems like she's too young to be working here." "Don't worry, she's 18. "How do you know?" I asked. "She's my niece." I felt uncomfortable after that. I had a similar situation at a small town strip club. Shockingly, there were like 10 girls working that night. For context, there were probably only 4 guys at the club besides my group. Bachelor party. One girl was particularly good looking. I went up to the bar and another dude about my age started talking to me about whatever, and in the conversation I mentioned how good looking that one girl was. Turns out it was his girlfriend. I was shocked. At the end of the conversation, he offered to let me fuck her if he could drive my car, a 550 HP heavily modified BMW. Definitely did not take him up on that offer. Was in Ragging College and had a pair of residents on my wing who were both cam girls. Found out from rumors that were eventually confirmed when I had to help both of them get back up to their room after calling the paramedics because they were passed out drunk outside our residence hall. Came into their room and saw the camera set up, dildos, and lingerie sets/pieces just laying out in the open. I also found out that night that they had a pet kitten in the room. Another rumor I heard about them that ended up being true, but also heard they abused it pretty bad, poor thing. Anyways, as we made it up to their wing, one of the girls came to just as we entered their room and tried to play with the pet kitten. She rolled off the bed from her side, stumbled across the room in just a few steps, and ended up falling face first into the makeshift litter box they had set up for their cat. Cat shit and cat litter flung everywhere. Our campus PD was so confused when they showed up to find sex toys and cat litter everywhere. Their dorm room nearly looked like a crime scene. What a time college was. What a time. Attending a bachelor party a long time ago. The stripper came in, said hello, and went to the bathroom to fix herself up. She peeked out the door and called one of them over. Turns out, she went to high school with us, a couple of years younger. She called a friend to replace her and she left. Not a worker though, funny story. One night my best mate was in town, lived in another state, used to live here. We went out clubbing and eventually decided to go to the strippers. Pay our money, and as we enter my friend notices a stripper laying on her back spread eagle for a guy. Highly drunk he yells out, "Hell yeah, how good is this?" The stripper hears and notices my friend, sits up and yells, "What are you doing in here?" My friend instantly went and sat in the corner proper embarrassed. Turns out it was his cousin. Not exactly someone I knew well, but I went on a Tinder date with a guy. Went to see a movie, nothing exciting. Nice enough guy, but no chemistry, and also didn't stay in contact. Opened my hotel door to my client one night to see him standing there. Didn't react to the fact that I knew him, because there's not a single person who knows what I do. Spent the entire booking telling me how sad he was we never caught up again, and how he knew it was me when he saw my photos. Photos were blurred and face cropped out, but I've got distinguishing hair, and how it must be fate. Played dumb the whole time because this guy knew my actual identity and eventually asked him to leave because of how uncomfortable his behavior was making me. I had a friend who is a lifestyle dom. For those unfamiliar with BDSM lingo, a female dominant, not professionally, just personally for fun. She is into a lot of freaky stuff, but working in the public, she is very secretive about her identity, no pictures of herself online, and very cautious before meeting anyone. Well, she has had guys message her asking her for some pretty nasty stuff, like bottling her piss and selling it to them, or even making a shit sandwich on one occasion. Yes, an actual shit sandwich. Well, the fucked up part is, she messages with these guys, and they, without her asking, reveal all sorts of personal details about themselves, like where they live or work, and they would send her photos of themselves. On more than one occasion she has run into one of them at work, and they had no idea it was her. She recognized them, and think to herself, this guy that begged me to make him lick his own cum off my feet, and he has no idea who the fuck I am. It would just make her feel even more powerful. Although she remained perfectly professional in their interactions, but may have acted a little bitchier than she normally would, because she knew they liked it. We surprised a friend from university that was working at a strip club to pay for her studies. She just noticed us, winked at us, and did her show as usual. Zero fucks of any kind were given by anyone. I had a friend at uni that was a stripper. I only found out because she got really drunk one night and told me. I always wondered how she managed to never get found out, but apparently it's cause students are always broke and can't afford it. If they ever do, it tends to be on a holiday abroad or a stag do, not in their uni town. Not a sex worker, but delivered a pizza to an own sex worker, and at the same moment I was about to knock on the door, a relative opens the door and watches me holding the pizza up to him. I couldn't do anything but laugh. He laughed too, maybe out of embarrassment, and as soon as the sex worker understood what was going on she also started laughing. Never mentioned this moment to anyone who knows my relative, and he is grateful for that to this day. I don't really qualify as a sex worker. I'm a guy who fucks women on camera for porn producers, so I'm not paid, and I don't have customers. But one time I showed up to a shoot for a blow bang, and ran into the guy who owned and operated the CrossFit place I went to. We acknowledged the connection on the set, and performed our roles, but basically never spoke of it again, and resumed our normal trainer/customer dynamic after that. He was married at the time, but I think they were open not that it was any business of mine. The end. Thanks for watching.